This poor woman. There's two twins. One of the twins is a maniac. All through high school, this fucking one twin is fucking the other one's boyfriends. She's getting in class and telling the teacher that her sister said she would do sexual favors for grades, which is pretty fucked up. That's not the color of my eyes, number one. I'm just trying new things. Okay? Just trying new things. Job interview I had was a bust because they want you to pay a $50 fee to take a licensing exam before you can do anything, defeating the purpose. So this is twice I've come back on these jobs that want you to pay something. Although it's not that much. That one's a lot easier to get. Than the other one. I just keep scouring them every day. I keep scouring them every day. Today's brought to you by last night's weed. Thank you, old friend of my dad's, who comes over and gives me a sample of the herb. A sample of the herb. He's moved far away. Gave me $10. He was troubled because I was eating crackers with peanut butter. Me and my dad ate those all the time. He would eat them and get little pieces of. He liked the Ritz crackers. He would get the Ritz crackers, put peanut butter on them. He had a little slice of cheese and strawberries. He'd chop the strawberries up and he would eat that as a meal. Of course, secretly his liver was dying. Back in the not so recent past, I don't know how all these marijuana laws affect the different states and jobs. When I was like, I don't know, maybe 21 years old or something like that, I went to work at a towboat company. It was called Kirby Inland Marine, and they put you through this vigorous test. Like, you had to go down to this place, take like this big ass, some equipment you would have on the boat to ratchet the chains and the cables and shit. You'd have to go up this, like one of those roller stairways, like the ones they rolled for you to get up on the plane. A stairway, so it's about 10 foot off the floor, but you had to put that on your shoulders and go up and down with it a couple times. They wanted to make sure you could do stuff like that. Rigorous chemical testing policy. They want a hair follicle test your ass. And see, you would go to work. I didn't have to take a hair follicle test. I did have to take a piss test. It wasn't like a blood test or anything crazy like that, but you were always subject, when you came back to work, to a piss test, and you get to work. You worked 2 weeks on the boat, where you have every other 6 hours is your watch with another guy. You and another guy are switching the whole time, 6 hours on, 6 hours off. So the boat's continually operated. You know what I mean? You would shut it down, and at certain times, according to whatever the schedule was, you'd have to change the oil in those engines on the boat. And that was fun because it wasn't difficult to do. The most difficult thing about that was just I don't even remember how you do it. I think you actually could turn a valve and deliver new oil to the machine from a tank that was filled with oil that you would fill the tank with oil. So you're letting out the old oil that's burnt up or no longer good. You had an easy way to dump that out into a tank where you just let out you turn the valve and the oil comes out of the machine after you shut it off. Which is pretty easy. If your vehicle had that type of autonomy like a boat does, like if you had water power and fucking those sort of things on your vehicle, it would be a ship. It'd be a land ship. I mean, and it's possible, it's just not necessary. But on the water, it is necessary. It is necessary. You unscrew the oil filter. It was probably about this big on that thing. Fucking take that motherfucker off. You didn't even need. You put gloves on. It might be hot, you know, but not very hot. And you had to change the packing on the the bilge. You have a bilge pump, which is pumping out the water, but at the prop that's going in, usually, you got two of them because you got two engines. So they both have a prop on them. Uh, where the shaft goes through, it's always leaking water. There is a packing that you put around it, and that keeps a lot of water out, but it doesn't keep all the water out. It's just not going to happen if you've got a rotating shaft, unless you want the motor on the outside of the boat. There's no way around it. So they're constantly leaking into the bilge. You have a bilge pump, so it's steadily pumping out the water, and it's fine. But these boats, sometimes they would they would sink. There would be, our boat one time, and I took my guitar this one time, and they have void tanks around them. These are push boats. They're like tugboats. Tugboat, you kind of got a view of what a tugboat is, but these boats didn't look like that. They were push boats. They normally pushed barges that you would sink with chemicals, and that was interesting because your empty barge is sitting on top of the water, just like if you threw a bowl into a swimming pool, it would just be floating on the water. But once you fill it with water, the motherfucker goes down. So that bowl could be half full of water itself, and it's just floating. And so you had a lot of that going on. And you'd have to hook up to these boats. They have cables on them with winches that the captain can control. So you can get the cable off. You've got to be holding the cable, the end of the cable, and then he can unspool it to you from the wheelhouse, and you can pull these cables and you hook up onto the barge, and then they sort of tighten up to it. And if you have other barges like stuff in the front, you've got to hook it up because you have cables and you have those winches and you have ropes too. It was like being a water cowboy because like you could be on the end of one of those barges, and if it's empty, it could be like 10 feet in the air, and that thing you're supposed to catch throwing your cowboy rope, it's called a cavil. Those things that have that weird shape that are on the end of the docks, those are so you can wrap the ropes around them. And you'd have to catch that. They taught you you went to a school for like a week, and they teach you how to do the ropes. You learned how to splice it together, do all that jazz, hook up tow, handle the cables, and all that stuff. And it was a pretty good job. The schedule was weird, mind you, because I've never worked a job where you got 2 weeks to work where you're on the boat, but you got a whole week off. And your check was like $2,000, $1,400, $2,000, whatever the fuck you have a good check. My eyes are not as feminine. I'm gonna have to put some sunglasses on myself. I don't want to hear that you can't hear this story because I know you can. I'm gonna turn the volume up. I'm gonna put these sunglasses on my face because I'm telling you my story. How long have I got? I can barely see on this one. This one's not bad. It just doesn't have the option to give you a picture-in-picture. And if you're going to use these filters, you have to use the screen recorder. Those screen recorders are subject to having shitty microphone programs in them. Like the one for the app, you've got to turn it to 200%. And it's on mute when you first get it. If you don't go through the settings and know to put it on microphone and off of mute, they've baseline muted it. And I don't know why they do that. That's kind of ignorant. You're ignorant. That's stupid. You're ignorant. Please like, share, and subscribe.